Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and Chag Sameach as well. This Shabbat coincides precisely with the festival of Passover. Friday evening, first Seder, and for those of you who observe second Seder, that'll take place on Saturday evening. During this past week, on Monday and on Thursday, we have read selections from what would have been the expected Sedra for this particular Shabbat. That Sedra would, by the way, have been Shmini. Monday and Thursday, we read from Shmini, but won't on this Shabbat morning. That was given according to the order of the readings in the book of Leviticus. Shmini has an incredibly fascinating story of how two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, they're sons of Aaron, they were nephews of Moses, offered what the Torah calls an Eish Zarah, a strange fire, to God, as a sacrifice to God. And as a result, they're killed by a divine flame that, according to some rabbis, consumed them from the inside out. What was their crime? And what is an Eish Zarah? And why did they have to die such a grisly death? Aaron wasn't even allowed to mourn for them. But we're going to be forced to put such questions on a shelf right now, and we'll get back to it next year. And focus right now on the designated traditional readings for this special Shabbat Yom Tov, Exodus 12, 21 to 51 plus Numbers 28, 19 to 25. In many Reform synagogues, we'll be reading Exodus chapter 15, Shirat Hayam, the Song of the Sea, as our reading Shabbat Yom Tov morning. So many questions surround the celebration of Pesach, and I don't just mean the traditional standard four. Here's a big one. Why are almost no women required by Jewish law to recline during the Seder? According to the earliest traditions, only a select few women who are considered to be distinguished have a ritual obligation to recline. Now, a son reclines in the presence of his father. Okay. A student reclines in the presence of a teacher. Got it. A servant reclines in the presence of the master. Good. But women? Not so very much. Such ages-old discrimination wants me to reach out for the orange and on our Seder plate and weep with shame. But this matter of who must recline at the Seder table left even the post-Talmudic rabbis scrambling for better explanations. They weren't at all happy. As found in this week in a blog which is entitled 10 Minutes of Talmud, and I really recommend it, it is recorded that Rabbi Moses Isserles, the great 16th century rabbi who wrote the official Eastern European Ashkenazi gloss on the Shulchan Aruch. Now, you know the Shulchan Aruch, it is that great compendium of Jewish law that still guides traditional Jewish practice this day. In any event, Moses Isserles, great rabbi, declared that in his day, since all Jewish women are considered to be distinguished, then all Jewish women are required to recline. Now, that's what we call one massive workaround of an enormously challenging text. Misogyny is barely hidden beneath the halachic surface. The traditional reading for the Shabbat includes the 10th plague, Makat Bechorot, the slaying of the firstborn, the Egyptian firstborn. The suffering of Egyptian families was so great at this point, and then later on, when the Red Sea flooded over the Egyptian armies, more people died, that the Midrash tells us that the angels were forbidden to sing songs of praise, hallelujah, to God at this redemption of the Israelites from Egypt. Because good or bad, God reminded the angels, good or bad, those who died were still God's creatures. Now, images of birth and rebirth of children living and in some cases dying abound in the Passover story. You got the first one. You know the first one. The story of how Moses, baby born, put into a reed basket, floated on the Nile River, and then pulled out by Pharaoh's daughter, and you know the rest of that story. Okay, but there's also the story of the Israelite midwives, Puah and Shiphrah, who defied Pharaoh's decree and saved Israelite babies from being put to death. Shiphrah and Puah are deservedly celebrated today as feminist icons. Learn their names, Shiphrah and Puah. But larger than any of these tales is the declaration by the prophet Ezekiel and by other prophets that the Jewish people itself was born during the Exodus. We descended into Egypt as a large tribe, the family of Jacob. We were called Bnei Israel. Bnei Israel, the children of Israel, one of the names of Jacob. We were the direct offspring or one or another of Jacob's 12 sons. So in that case, we were Bnei Levi, Bnei Yehuda, Bnei Shimon. We were sons, children of one of Jacob's sons. Big tribe with some subdivisions. But the desert experience seems to have changed all of that. By the time that we entered Canaan, 40 years after departing Egypt, we had developed a sense of unity, of oneness. We had become a people. Please note that we never managed to forget or abandon our tribal origins. For example, you know what happened after the death of King Solomon? 10 tribes broke off, formed the northern kingdom of Israel, the southern kingdom, 2 other tribes, Benjamin and Judah. Tribes to the north, tribe to the south. We were a people, yet we had tribal memories. And the priestly tribe of Levi has never abandoned its own place in our lives to this very day. Every Kohen or Kon or Khan or Dwex in the Syrian Jewish world, every Levin, Levine, Lewin, still celebrate their ties to Levi, one of Jacob's sons, a tribe. But nevertheless, beyond this remembrance of tribes, we had become a people during the Exodus. That key people even came to include those who were not biologically related to Jacob. It wasn't a biological, race? It was a tribe. It included the Erev Rav, this significant number of the mixed multitude, Egyptians, who knows whom they were, who joined the Israelites on the flight into freedom. The rabbis understood this. And they found a kind of mystical justification for this transformation, for this rebirth, hidden in plain sight within our text. Now, what follows is eisegesis. Eisegesis is a reading into the text of that which is neither explicitly or implicitly there. What's the word? Good. Eisegesis. But in this case, this particular eisegesis had become so normative that many people treat it as if it were found in the literal Torah text itself. Now try to follow me on this. Couple words of Hebrew won't be threatening. The Hebrew word for Egypt, Mitzrayim. Good. Mitzrayim. The word Meitzar in Hebrew is a narrow place. Mina Meitzar karati Yah, from narrow places I cried unto God. The children of Israel had to flee Mitzrayim, the Meitzar, the narrow place, Egypt itself. And the final act, the actual separation from Egypt, was our passing through the waters of the Reed Sea. Now catch this. The sea split, the tribes passed through and emerged reborn as a people. The Reed Sea then was our birth canal. Egypt, the womb. Reed Sea, the birth canal. On the other side, we emerged as a people. We were then ready to stand at Sinai and accept Torah and the future that Torah opened up for us. The theme of rebirth echoes throughout the festival of Passover. Starting on this Saturday, the first morning of Pesach, we will change a reading of the second blessing of the Amidah from a blessing for rain to a blessing for dew. Instead of Morid HaGeshem, which we'll get back to during Sukkot, we insert Tal Umatar, a prayer for dew. Living in a very dry climate, our ancestors understood the role that dew played in keeping their crops alive during the hot summer months. Dew on the leaves every morning during the summer meant growth, and growth meant food, and food meant life. The books of the prophets frequently link dew with resurrection, with rebirth. So here it is once again, into Passover, rebirth. And finally, another rebirth. During the festival of Passover, we read one of the Chamesh Megillot, one of the 5 scrolls. Not the scroll of Esther. We read that on Purim. Ecclesiastes, Sukkot, Ruth, good, Shavuot, Jonah, Yom Kippur, Shir HaShirim is read on Passover, the Song of Songs. Ani l'dodi v'dodi li, I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. It doesn't take a strained eisegesis to connect the Song of Songs with birth and rebirth. It's right there, that connection, kind of like gently smiling at us. So many questions, and maybe that's one of the reasons why Jews tend to ascribe high value to people who go out trying to find answers. It's Passover. Okay, so we celebrate all of those women whose actions helped make Passover possible and still make it possible today. It's Passover. So at our Seder tables, we celebrate rebirth from the narrow place, through the birth canal, from a gathering of tribes to an eternal people. It's Passover. So we remind ourselves how we once achieved that which was impossible. And then we prepare ourselves to work miracles in our own day. Have a wonderful Shabbat, my friends, and have a joyous Pesach. And you can stop this week's Torah conversation from ever becoming chometz by hitting share. See you next week.